What's up, everybody? It's Caroline from Digital Adventures, and today we are going to be doing part 1 of how to create Minecraft in Roblox. So we're going to start off by making blocks that you can place, and we're going to do this using a tool. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this plus sign next to Workspace, and I'm going to add a tool. Now for this one, I'm going to make this just stone. I'm going to make it a stone like this so that I'm placing stone. So instead of tool, I'm just going to name this stone. And I'm going to add a part to this, which I'm going to rename handle because all tools need a handle. And then I'm going to change the size of the handle so that it looks like a little block, which I'm just going to do. It's 1 by 1 by 1. And if we zoom in over here, this is going to be my tool. I'm going to hold it in my hand. It's going to look like a mini version of a block. And I will use it to place actual size blocks. And then for the way that I'm going to do this, it's important that I make this, the handle, the color and texture of the block I'm going to place. So for this one, it's going to be stone. So I'm going to make it slate. And I'm going to leave it at the regular gray, because that's a pretty good stone color. Alrighty, so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add a local script to my stone tool. And we're going to get rid of this print hello world. All right, so to start, we're going to need to make a couple local variables. So I'm going to start by naming my tool just tool. And that's going to be equal to script dot parent. So parent of the script is our tool. And then we're also going to find the handle so that we can reference it later. So local handle equals tool dot handle. All right, now I'm going to make a couple variables that are going to refer to the character or the person holding the tool. But because when the game starts, nobody is holding the tool, I'm going to make these variables, but I'm not going to store anything in them yet. So I'm going to start with local, and I'm going to call it my player. And that's going to be equal to nil, which is nothing. And so the next one's going to be local my char or my character, which is nil again. And then my hum, which would be the humanoid inside the player. And then these last, these second two. And then these other two are going to be in relation to what your mouse is clicking on. So the first one's going to be my mouse. And the second one is going to be my targets, which will refer to whatever the mouse is clicking on. And that will also be nil. All right, and then these last two, before we actually get into our functions, are going to be how far away you want to be able to click to make a block. So I'm going to call it placeable distance, but that's super long. So I'm just going to call it place distance. And I'm going to make that like 15 studs so that I can place a block anywhere within 15 studs. And then the size of my block, so and my variable is going to be called block size. Oops. And I'm going to set that equal to 3 because I think that looks like a good block size, kind of Minecraft-y. All right, so I'm going to leave some empty space here, and I'm going to create a function called onEquipped. And that is going to take a parameter of mouse. And I'm going to call this function when this tool gets equipped. And so now, once the tool is equipped, I can actually set some of these variables because now there's actually a character holding them. So we're going to start by saying my character equals tool dot parent. So the character is the person holding the tool. My player is, so to get the actual player, we have to ask the game for whichever player using the character information. So we're going to say game :get service, and the service we're looking for is all of the players. And then so that's going to get us a list of the players, and from that we're going to get player from character, and the character we have is my character. All right, and then lastly we're going to do my hum, and that's, we're going to look inside my char for find first child humanoid. And then when we call onEquipped, it automatically gives us the mouse of the character. And so we're going to say my mouse equals mouse. And then, so long as a mouse exists, then we are going to connect another function to that. But we have to make sure that it finds a mouse. So we're going to say if my mouse, so if it actually is equal to something, then connect the event of the mouse button being pushed to a new function, which we haven't written yet. So we're going to say my mouse dot button one down, just like that, colon connect. And then I haven't written this function yet, but I'm going to call it onClick. And so it's going to get kind of mad at me because I haven't actually written that function yet, but we'll leave that for now. So this function is now done. It gives us all the information we need once the tool has been equipped. And then at the end, I'm going to make sure that this function gets called when my tool is equipped. So I'm going to say tool dot equipped colon connect on equipped. And then I don't actually want these extra parentheses, so I'm going to click in between them, delete the first one, and it deletes the second one. So now I'm going to go back up here, and whenever you call a function, that function has to be written somewhere earlier in the code. So we're going to go ahead and write our function up here before it gets called. So this one's on click, and this one does not need to take any parameters. All right, so this is going to be when the mouse gets clicked, this function is going to find the position of the mouse and then determine whether or not we are placing a block by itself or we're placing a block in relation to a block that has already been placed. So the first thing is we got to find information about where the mouse is clicking. So we're going to say local, and I'm going to call this place. And this is going to be the information about where the mouse is clicking. And that we get by saying my mouse dot hit. But that has a couple pieces of information, and I just want the position. So my next variable is going to be local position equals place dot position. So that's actually going to be, you know, that XYZ information. All right. Now we also have to determine what the position of the character is at that moment so we can see if we're close enough to actually place a block. So we're going to say local my position equals my hum, which we, you know, made at the top, and then down here we found it. So whoever's holding the tool, dot root part dot position. So that will get the position of the person holding the tool. And now we're going to find the distance between them. So we're going to say local distance equals, and then I'm going to take the position of the block minus my position. And I'm doing this in parentheses because I want to get what the magnitude of that is, basically just the value. So I'm going to say dot magnitude. Because otherwise, if I didn't do the parentheses, it could get the magnitude of my dot position first and then attempt to subtract it from position, and I don't want that. I want the magnitude of the equation. All right. So now that I have this distance, I'm going to see if it is within my 15 studs. So I'm going to say if distance is less than place distance, which is my 15 studs, then I'm able to place the block. Now, what we're going to do here is we're going to check and see if I'm trying to place a block just kind of like by itself, or if I've clicked on a block that already exists and I'm trying to place a new block in relation to that. Basically in Minecraft, like if you look at a block and you're looking at the top of that block and you try to place a block, like another block on top of it, there's kind of like a difference here because we don't have blocks for our ground yet. All right. So the first thing we're going to do is we got to make sure that we're actually clicking on something. So we're going to say if my mouse dot target, and that actually gets what we're clicking on. Now, because a base plate already exists in the game, we'll either be clicking on the base plate or on another block if one already exists. But we have to make sure that whatever we're clicking on exists, otherwise it's not going to have somewhere to place it anyway. So we're saying my mouse dot target. So if that exists and if my mouse dot target has a parent. Then, so if my mouse dot target and my mouse dot target dot parent, then. So that'll make sure that both of those things exist, which will make it easier for us. All right, so if they do exist, then I'm going to set my target, the my target variable, which I made right up here at the very top. I'm going to set that equal to the target of the mouse. So my target equals my mouse dot target. And let me capitalize that. Okay. Now, here's where we're going to check if we actually clicked on another block or not. And we are going to make it so that all of the blocks we create are named block. So it's easy to check. So we're going to say if my target dot capital N name equal double quotes block, then. So if the name of the target, the thing that I'm clicking on, is block, then I'm going to call another function, which again I haven't written yet, but I'm going to call that function block click because I'm clicking on another block. And that I actually do need to give a couple pieces of information. I'm going to give it my target, so the thing that I've clicked on. And then I'm also going to give it what's called the target surface, which will tell us which side of that block I've clicked on. So it's going to be my mouse dot target surface. And that'll help us determine where to place the block in relation to the block that already exists. Because if I click on the top, then I want it to go up, and bottom, I want it to go down, and all the other sides. All right, so now it's confused because it's like, I don't know what that means, and I haven't written it yet. But first, we need to tell it what to do if the thing we've clicked on is not named block. So I'm going to make a new line. I'm going to say else. And that, I'm going to call that function, I'm going to call place new because it's being placed by itself. And in that case, I'm going to give it the position of where I've clicked, which we made right up here. All righty. So now I'm going to start off. So again, I mentioned earlier, any function you call, that function has to be written in the code before it. So I'm going to make a couple new lines up here, and we're going to start with place new. So I'll make my place new function, and I already know that I need to give it a position, but I'm just going to call that pause in here. And that's all I need. So I got my function. My function place new with the parameter of pause in parentheses, and then my end statement. All right, so what we need to do is, like in Minecraft, we need to make it so that blocks can only be placed in certain spots. We can't like place them in between. And to do that, because my block size is 3, we're going to need to kind of divide. We're going to do some math to make sure that it's in a proper position. Basically, we're going to find the closest proper position to where we've clicked and place it there. And to do that, we need to do a couple math equations with each part of where it's placed. So with the x coordinate, the y coordinate, and the z coordinate. So we're going to start by taking apart this position. So we're going to make local variable called pos x for position x. And I'm going to set that equal to pos dot x. So this pos variable I gave the position, and this will give me that x coordinate. I'm going to do this for all 3. So now I'm making local pos y equals position pos dot y, and local pos z equals pos dot z. So that will give me each individual coordinate. Now I'm going to take that number and divide it by my block size, which for me is 3. If it's like 16, it's going to give me a decimal. And I don't want a decimal. So I'm going to make sure that it rounds to the closest number. So I'm going to say local, and I'm calling this div for divided, divided x equals, and then if I just wanted to do the division, I would say pos x divided by block size, but I want it to round. So I'm going to put this in parentheses, and I'm going to say math.round. So that will access, the game's math equations, and it will round up whatever's in those parentheses. All right, and then I'm also going to do that for my y and my z. So div y equals math.round, pos y divided by block size, then local div z equals math.round, pos z divided by block size. All right, awesome. All right, so now I'm going to use those numbers to figure out what the proper position is based on where I clicked, what's the nearest proper location. So I'm going to say local new x, because that's my new x position, equals my div x times my block size. And then I'm going to do that also for my z, but not for my y yet. So equals div z times block size. And then my y, so new y equals, this one, I do have to do that, but I'm going to put that in parentheses. So I'm going to say div y times block size. But to make it go up the proper amount, we have to add half the size of the block to it. And so we're going to add to that block size divided by 2. And so what that does is, my block size is 3. And if I were to place my block on the ground, and I clicked on the ground, it would try and place it so that the middle of the block is in the ground. So the block would be like halfway in the ground if I clicked on the base plate. And so I want to tell it, I don't want it halfway in the ground. I want it on the ground. So I have to add that half that's below it to the Y position. I know that's kind of confusing, but I promise it works. All right. And then the last 2 things I need to do is I need to make my new position. So I'm going to say local new pos equals vector 3 dot new. And I'm going to use my 3 new x, y, and z coordinates. So my x coordinate is new x, new y, and new z. And then I'm going to call another function that I haven't written yet called make block. And I'm going to give it a parameter of my new position. All right, so there's my function that places a block if I am not clicking on another block. But now I need to write that function that if I've clicked on a block, which if we go down here, I had called block click. So I'm going to say function block click, whoops. And that I had given 2 parameters. I have given that target, and I'd given it the surface. So here's my new function. Now the first thing I need is to make a variable called offset. I'm not going to set it equal to anything because it's going to change depending on which surface of that block that I've clicked on. Now this is going to be a long series of ifs and thens and else ifs, which is a little confusing, but basically it determines which side of the block we've clicked on, and depending on that side, where our position should go to. So we're going to say if surface equal, and then the sides of the blocks in Roblox are kind of given like weird ID tags. It's called enum dot normal ID dot and then the name of the side. We're going to start with a right. So if that's the surface that we've clicked on, then so that what that means is that we want to place our block to the z, like in the positive z direction side of the other block. So we're going to say offset equals vector 3 dot new 0, 0, block size. So we're taking the old position. Well, we'll take the old position of the target of where we clicked, which was that the other block we clicked on. We're going to add 3 to it in the z direction. All right, but if that's not the side we clicked on, we're going to say else if surface equal enum dot normal ID dot left, then, and I'm going to copy this. But if it's left, then we want to go in the negative z direction. We want to subtract from it. And so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to put block size in parentheses, but I'm going to multiply it by -1. So that will make it negative. All right, now we're going to do another else if. So we're going to do a lot of these. And we're going to say else if surface equal enum dot normal ID dot, this time let's do front then. So this one is going to be in the x direction. So front is adding in the x direction. So let's see, I'm going to paste my thing right here, but I don't want it to be x. So I'm going to change the z coordinate, or I don't want it to be z, excuse me. And I'm going to change the x coordinate to block size. And then else if surface equal enum dot normal ID dot back, then I'll take this and I'm gonna, whoopsies, I didn't mean to paste, I meant to copy. There we go. But I'm gonna do the same thing I did last time where I multiplied block size by -1, so that will be a subtraction instead of an addition when I add it. All right, And we got two more sides. We got top and bottom. So else if surface equal enum normal ID. Let's start with top. Then, all right, here's my offset. And this time, instead of adding to the X, I want to add to the Y because I've clicked on the top. Oops, that's definitely not what I meant. Block size. There we go. And then the very last one, else if surface equal enum dot normal ID dot bottom, then, and that in that case, I want my block size, but again, I want it multiplied by -1 because I want to go down. And so now that I have the offset, I'm going to actually add it to the position of the block that I've clicked on. So I'm going to say local new position equals target dot position plus my offset. And I'm going to call again that new function I haven't yet made yet called make block. And I'm going to give it the position. So make block new pause. Alrighty, so now that I have both of these functions that determine where the block is going to be placed, I actually need to make the block and place it. So again, any function that gets called somewhere needs to be written before it gets called. So I'm going back up to the top and I'm going to say function make block, and I give it the position that it's going to be put in. So now to make the block, I'm going to tell the game local block is a new instance of block. So instance, ooh, that's definitely not what I expected. Instance dot new, and then a part, because it's just going to be a part, not pants. I don't know why it gave me pants. Okay. And then I'm going to name it like I said earlier, and this is important. So block.name equals double quotes block, because that will make it so that if we click on another block later, it has the name block and it will do what we want. So I named it block. I'm going to set it so that its parent is the workspace. So block.parent equals game.workspace. And then I'm going to anchor it. So block.anchored equals true. All right, now I actually have to tell the game what the size of the block is and what color and material it should be. So that is going to be block.size equals vector3.new. And then I already have my variable block size. So I'm just going to say block size, comma, block size, comma, block size. So that'll give me a perfect cube. And then because I'm making it easier for myself to make more tools that are like other materials, instead of saying like stone, I'm going to say take the material of the handle and copy that. So we're going to say block dot material equals handle dot material. And then I'm going to do the same for the color. Block dot brick color equals handle dot brick color. All right, and then I actually need to tell it where to put our block. And I'm going to use this position that I have. And I'm going to say block dot position equals pause. And then don't want to just put it anywhere willy-nilly. I want it to be facing the proper direction because, again, like in Minecraft, you can't put things like on a diagonal. So we're going to give it the proper orientation. We're going to say block dot orientation equals vector 3 dot new. And so this will go for all of them. We're just going to go 0, comma, -90, comma 0. And that will just make it so it's properly aligned. And then that is it. So that is all we have in our tool. So now let's go through here. Let's make sure I don't have anything that's underlined. All right, so my code looks good. So let's test this out. I'm gonna hit play. All right, so now I'm gonna go over, pick up my tool. Now my grip on it is a little weird, which is fine. I can change that later, but let's see if I can place blocks. So I'm gonna do first person like Minecraft. And if I click, see I can place a block. And no matter where I place it, it's always going to be kind of in the right place. There's no like, I can't like click on kind of the middle between these two. It will always be aligned properly. So yay, it is working. So now if you would like to make it so that your grip on it is not, that the block is like encasing your hand, the trick I like to use is I'm gonna put this away and then the game's still running and I'm gonna go into players, find myself, and I'm gonna go into my backpack and click on it. And then it shows me my grip right here. And then I'm actually gonna re-equip it and I can edit the grip while I'm holding it. So grip position is the one that I'm going to be changing up. So Y is, you know, the up and down. Now it's kind of inverted. So I know that I want -0.5 for this. That's going to bring it up a little bit. Then I want to move it forward and kind of in, you know, towards my body a little bit more. So I think that's like 0.4 and 0.4 for the Z and the X. And that I like as my position. I like that. But this isn't really going to save. So I'm going to hit the stop. And now you'll see that my stone, the handle, the grip position has not changed to what I want it. So I'm going to go over here, 0.4, -0.5, and 0.4 again. And now that will save. All right. And so now when I hit play and I pick it up, it should automatically be properly located in my hand. There it is. So now we need to make it so that we can get rid of blocks. For this first video, we're not going to make it that you can like pick up blocks or like add them to your inventory. Like we haven't done the number of blocks you're holding yet, which we will do, but not this video. But so for this one, we're going to go to starter player. And we're going to add to a starter player script, we're going to add a local script. So this is going to make it so that if you right click on a block, that will get rid of it. So the first thing we need to do is we need to get the player. So we're going to say local player equals game dot play, whoops, game dot players dot local player, which because we're in the local script, it'll know to just find the player that the script is in, because local script or all these scripts that are in starter player script will be put into a player when they load into the game. All right, now we need to get the mouse because we need to figure out if we're clicking on something. So we're going to say local mouse equals player colon get mouse and then empty parentheses. And then lastly, I'm going to make a variable called target, but I'm not going to set it equal to anything yet. All right, so now my function, which will delete a block, so I'm going to call it delete block. I don't need to give it any parameters. All right, so the same thing as when we're doing it on our tool, we need to make sure that if we click on something, that there's actually something there. And this function is going to get called when we click. So we're going to say if mouse dot target and mouse dot target dot parent. And let me fix this. Then, so if the thing if we've clicked on something that exists and that thing also has a parent that exists, then I'm going to set my target to mouse.target. Now I'm going to check and see if it is a block, if it's one of the blocks that we've made, which we named all of them block. So that should be easy. We're going to say if target dot name equal block. Then if that's right, we're going to destroy it. So target destroy. And that's all we need our function to do. And then we're going to tell our function to run whenever we click on the right mouse button. So mouse dot button 2 down connect. And there's my delete block function, and I only want I don't need those parentheses, so I get rid of them. All right, and let's test it out. So I'm going to have to place blocks first before I can delete them. Okay, so now let's put a couple blocks down. Woohoo! Alrighty, and then if I right click, which I'm using the other side of my mouse, I get rid of it. And it doesn't matter if I'm holding the stone tool or not. But then if I click on the regular side, on the regular part of the mouse, if I left click, I can place. And if I right click, I can destroy. Alrighty. Awesome. So now that this is working, I'm going to make a couple more of these tools. So I'm going to go ahead and duplicate this. But this one is going to be, I'm going to make this like wood planks. And so to make it so that the blocks that actually show up are wood planks, all I have to do is change the handle. So I'm going to change this to wood planks. And then I'm going to change the color. Let's see, what color do I want to make it? Let's go with, let's see how this looks. All right, so now I'm going to hit play. All right, so now I have two tools, stone and wood planks. So let's see how these look. All right. So now I can like build a little house if I want. And so that is how to make placeable and destroyable blocks in Roblox. So if you have any questions, please do not hesitate to put them in the comments, and I will be making a part 2 where we can show on our block, so like on the actual block I'm holding, like the number we have, and make it so that you have to have, you know, at least one block, and that we'll also then be able to make it so that when you destroy blocks, you can pick them up. And so it'll add that number to the amount of blocks you have. And then if I have time in that video, I may add how to make a pickaxe. which will destroy the blocks, and each block would have like a different, I guess, hardness or like toughness. So it would take a different amount of time to destroy each different type of block. Or that may end up being a part 3. All right. So yeah, I guess that's it for this video. Please comment and like, and if you're interested in learning more about Roblox or computer coding in general, go to digitaladventures.com. All righty, everybody, have a good one. Bye-bye.